You can keep your job or your wife, not both. My wife tried to destroy everything I built for her family's emergency. Turns out she was already planning her exit, cheating with a coworker and sabotaging my career. I dismantled her plan piece by piece. Hey Reddit, not sure how to even start this, but my wife gave me an ultimatum that flipped my whole life upside down. What started as helping her family turned into something way darker than I ever expected. I've been sitting on this for a while, trying to make sense of how it all went down. So I figured I'd finally write it out. Maybe it'll make more sense once I tell the full story. I, Larry, 32 male, an industrial engineer out in Denver, and for most of my life, I've been the guy who keeps things running smoothly. Machines, schedules, people. You'd think that kind of logic would protect me from chaos at home. Yeah, not exactly. Michaela, my wife, 29 female, freelance graphic designer, has always been the spontaneous one. I used to find that attractive, until spontaneous turned into strategic with selective honesty. We'd been married 3 years. No kids, just a small apartment we were about to trade for a house once my promotion came through. That promotion was the light at the end of a 5-year grind. Lately, though, things felt off. I'd walk into the living room and she'd slam her laptop shut like I'd caught her watching State Secrets. Her design calls suddenly required headphones and closed doors. She changed her phone passcode. When I asked about it, she gave me the classic, "Why don't you trust me?" A phrase that usually means, you absolutely shouldn't. She started spending evenings scrolling through Zillow listings in other states. I figured it was just her creative brain wandering until she said, "You know, Denver's too dry for me. I miss the rain." She's from Portland. I didn't think much of it. Until one night, she finally decided to drop the act. It was a Tuesday. I'd just finished finalizing production timelines and was dead tired. I walk in, and she's sitting on the couch with that posture women get right before delivering bad news. Arms crossed, one knee bouncing, eyes too calm. "Larry," she said, "we're moving to Portland." I laughed because, that's not usually how marriage decisions are announced. "We're doing what now?" "To help my family," she replied. "My dad's been struggling since he lost his job, and they need me. If you don't come with me, this marriage is done." Just like that. No warm-up, no conversation. Straight to emotional blackmail. I set my bag down and stared at her for a second. "You're saying if I don't uproot my career, we're done?" Her face didn't even twitch. "If you really loved me, this wouldn't be a question. Family comes first." There it was, the guilt grenade. Classic. "Michaela," I said, keeping my tone even. "We've got a life here. My promotion's 2 weeks away. We've been saving for a down payment. I can't just walk away from everything I've built." She tilted her head like I'd said something in another language. "Money isn't everything, Larry. You care more about a paycheck than your wife's family. There's this thing that happens when someone's so convinced they're right that logic just slides off them. You can either argue until you're blue in the face, or you can sit back and let them expose themselves. I chose option 2. "Okay," I said slowly. "So let me get this straight. You want to leave Denver, where our entire life is, because your dad lost his job. Temporarily." She folded her arms tighter. "It's not temporary. He's depressed. He needs emotional support." "Does he need you specifically? Or would weekly calls and visits help?" Her lips pressed together. "If you can't understand the importance of being there for family, I don't know what to say." "Try honesty," I muttered. Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" I shrugged. She glared like I'd insulted her ancestors. "You're unbelievable." "Probably," I said. "But I'm also not an idiot." The room went silent long enough for me to hear the fridge hum. She finally stood up, grabbed her phone, and said, "I can't do this with you when you're like this." "When I'm like what? Rational?" She stopped halfway to the hallway and turned around, her face cold. "You've made your choice. By not agreeing to your ultimatum, by choosing your career over your wife." And that's when it clicked. She wasn't negotiating, she was setting a trap. No matter what I said, she'd already decided the answer. I watched her disappear into the bedroom and close the door, probably to message whoever she'd been talking to behind my back. I should have felt angry, but what I felt was something colder. Clarity. She thought she could threaten me into submission. But here's the thing about engineers. We don't respond well to emotional manipulation. We fix systems. We solve problems. And right now, the problem was sitting in the next room pretending to be my wife. So I made a decision of my own. I wasn't moving to Portland. I wasn't abandoning my promotion. And I definitely wasn't going to keep pretending this was a marriage built on teamwork when she'd already started playing solo. When I walked into our bedroom later that night, she was pretending to sleep. I just looked at her for a second. This woman who used to make me laugh so easily now lying there like a stranger. And I felt weirdly calm. If she wanted a test, she was about to get her results. Because I don't do ultimatums, I do facts. And the fact was simple. The minute she said, "If you don't come, we're done," she made my choice for me. And I wasn't about to fail my own sanity just to pass her delusion. The next morning, Michaela acted like nothing happened. Pancakes, fake smiles, small talk. I just watched, wondering how someone could deliver an ultimatum one night and play domestic goddess the next. She slid a plate across the table and said, "You've been so tense lately, babe. Maybe you should take a break from work." I stared at her for a second. "You mean the job you want me to quit?" She gave a light laugh. "You're always twisting things." "I'm just saying you're overworking yourself." "Right. Overworking myself toward the promotion she pretended didn't exist." Over the next few weeks, she started a full-blown emotional campaign. It was subtle at first, little digs that turned into daily routines. Every argument somehow circled back to me being a bad husband. She'd say things like, "Any real man would put his wife's family first," or, "You're supposed to be my partner, not my obstacle." When guilt didn't work fast enough, she upgraded to reinforcements, her parents. The first call came on a Sunday morning. Her mom's voice trembled like she was auditioning for a tragedy. "Larry, honey, I hate to bother you," she said, "but we're in a real mess. The bank's been calling about the mortgage. I don't know what to do." It took one phone call to know Michaela coached her on what to say. I told her calmly, "I can help with a few payments if needed, but I can't move states right now. My job's mid-cycle. I can wire something this week." She sniffled. "You don't understand. We just need family nearby. We need Michaela. She can't do that from Denver." Of course. There it was again. The manipulation through family. 2 days later, her dad called. His tone was all man-to-man, the kind guys use when they're trying to guilt-trip you while pretending they're not. "Son, you gotta understand how hard it is for a father to ask for help. I'd never interfere in your marriage, but Michaela's torn up about this. We're not asking for money, just support. She needs to be here." I told him, "I get it, but pulling me out of my job isn't going to fix your mortgage. Let me help financially." He sighed like I just told him I hated puppies. "I thought you were a family man, Larry." By the third call, I stopped answering unknown numbers. The next morning, my coworker Jake pulled me aside at lunch. "Hey man, congrats on the move. Heard you're heading to Portland?" I nearly choked on my sandwich. "What?" "Yeah, your wife mentioned it on the company page. Said you're wrapping up projects before the transfer." I laughed. One of those quiet, disbelieving laughs that come right before fury. "Jake, I'm not going anywhere." He raised an eyebrow. "Then you might want to check with your mortgage guy too. Heard from Susan in accounting that you canceled your pre-approval." That's when my stomach dropped. I hadn't canceled anything. I called the bank during lunch. After a few minutes on hold, the rep came back and said, "Yes, we received the cancellation request from the shared Gmail you used on the lender portal. It was submitted yesterday by Michaela Walters." I gripped the phone tighter. Of course it was. I hung up, took a deep breath and said to myself, of course she did. Orky, that night I came home and found her pretending to scroll Pinterest like she wasn't planning corporate sabotage. "Michaela," I said casually, "you canceled our mortgage pre-approval?" She blinked twice, then smirked. "Well, what's the point of buying a house in Denver if we're leaving?" "We're not leaving," I said. "You're unbelievable," she said, shaking her head. "You're seriously going to let a piece of paper come before your wife's happiness?" I leaned against the counter. "You mean the paper that took 3 months of paperwork and years of saving?" "Yeah, that one." She crossed her arms. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "No," I said. "You are." After she stormed off, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started saving copies of everything. Emails, messages, bank confirmations, even screenshots of her Portland move posts. I didn't know what her endgame was, but I wasn't about to be the idiot husband who found out too late. Over the next week, I noticed her getting bolder. She started posting stories of us captioned with Larry, my soon-to-be Portland partner, like she was manifesting my consent. I stopped correcting her. Let her build her fantasy. The higher she climbed, the harder she'd fall. When she wasn't pretending we were moving, she was giving me silent treatment marathons. I stayed polite, calm, collected. I kept going to work, getting my projects done, keeping my head straight. By the end of the second week, she was frustrated that I wasn't breaking down. She wanted tears, panic, begging, something she could use to prove she still had control. Instead, all she got was a man quietly watching her lose credibility. One night, she muttered, "You know, I thought marriage meant sacrifice." I looked up from my laptop and said, "It does. Just not one person sacrificing everything while the other one rehearses her exit." She didn't have a comeback for that. That was the night I stopped doubting myself. Whatever this was, it wasn't partnership. It wasn't even love. It was strategy. 2 days later, she made her next move. I was drinking my morning coffee, scanning blueprints on my tablet, when she walked in already dressed like she had a press conference scheduled. Arms crossed, chin tilted high, the pose of someone about to deliver a speech. "You have 2 weeks," she said flatly, "to decide." I looked up. "Decide what? Portland or our marriage?" I took a sip of coffee like she just reminded me to take out the trash. "That's cute," I said. "You rehearsed that?" Her eyes flared. "This isn't a joke, Larry. I'm serious." "I can tell. You even used a deadline. Very corporate of you." She stomped closer. "I'm done waiting around for you to grow a heart. My parents need me. If you loved me, you'd already be packing." I stood, set my mug down, and met her stare. "If you loved me, you'd stop turning our marriage into a negotiation." She scoffed, spun around, and slammed the bedroom door so hard the picture frames rattled. I went to work like nothing happened. My job had become my escape, a place where logic still made sense. Machines didn't lie, people did. But that morning, even work couldn't stay untouched. My manager, Greg, pulled me into his office before our meeting. He's an old school guy, the type who starts every sentence with, "Look, kid." He closed the door and gave me a weird look. "Look, kid," he said, "I got your email about relocation. That true?" My stomach dropped. "What email?" He turned his monitor around. On the screen was an email sent from my company account, except I hadn't written it. "Hi, Greg, just a heads up. I might be relocating to Oregon soon due to family matters. I understand this may affect my eligibility for the promotion. I'll confirm once things are finalized. Larry Walters." I felt my pulse in my jaw. "Greg, I didn't send that." He frowned. "You sure?" "It came from your address." Positive, I said. She must have used a remembered login on my home laptop. I left one session open. He whistled. Man, that's manipulation on a corporate level. Yeah, I said. Tell me about it. When I got back to my desk, I changed every password and added two-factor authentication on everything. Greg later told HR what happened and documented it himself. My record stayed clean and the promotion was still on track. Greg told me, "Don't worry. I'll document this and forward it to HR myself. Your record's clean. Nobody's taking that promotion from you." I nodded, trying to stay composed. But inside, I was ready to punch drywall. Not out of rage, out of disbelief that she'd actually tried to sabotage my career. On my way out of his office, I bumped into Jake, my coworker who'd been following the soap opera from the sidelines. "You good?" he asked. "Define good," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Your wife just pulled an HR stunt. That's advanced warfare." "Yeah," I said. "She's running a PR campaign against me now." Jake laughed. "Bro, she's not a wife anymore. She's a startup founder trying to pivot her business model." That actually made me laugh. First time in weeks. "You might be right," I said. "She's pitching a merger that's already bankrupt." Then I went home and acted like nothing happened. She wanted a reaction. She wasn't getting one. When I walked in, she was at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone. She didn't even look up. "You look tense," she said. "Rough day?" "You could say that," I replied. "Maybe if you weren't so stubborn, life wouldn't be so hard." I smiled faintly. "You're right. If I just gave up everything I worked for, life would be easy." She frowned, sensing the sarcasm, but too prideful to address it. "You'll thank me someday." "For what?" "For saving us," she said simply, like she actually believed it. By the weekend, I started noticing more signs. She'd leave her email open when she forgot to close the browser. Threads with names like Portland Project Group, Design West Collective, and Relocation Strategy, all dated months before her dad's supposed layoff. I took pictures of the screen with my phone, not because I needed proof, but because I wanted to remember how far she was willing to go to get her way. Still, I didn't confront her yet. I wanted to see just how deep this went. The following Monday, Jake swung by my workstation during lunch, holding his sandwich like he was delivering news from the front lines. "Hey man," he said, lowering his voice a bit. "My girlfriend Lisa says she's been in some online design groups with Michaela." I didn't even look up from my screen. "That's so?" "Yeah," he said. "Apparently your wife's been talking to Portland agencies for like half a year, way before her dad's job thing. Lisa thought you already knew." I froze mid-scroll. "Half a year?" Jake nodded slowly, then hesitated. "There's more." Lisa said, "Michaela's gotten kinda close with one of those designers. Some guy named Ryan, I think? Portland-based." Lisa said they flirt a lot in the calls. Like not professional collaborate close, more inside jokes and late-night messages close. I leaned back in my chair, exhaled through my nose, and smirked. Of course she did. Jake frowned. "You okay, man?" "Oh, I'm fantastic," I said, dry as sandpaper. "Just realized my wife's been running a long-term relocation campaign with a side project named Ryan. Might even have quarterly goals and performance reviews." Jake winced. "Dude, that's rough." "Not rough," I said, gathering my files. "Predictable." I stood in the doorway, just out of camera range, and listened. "Yeah, once I'm back home permanently," she was saying, "I'll have more time to build my portfolio. My husband's just being difficult, but he'll come around. He always does." I smiled. That was the first true thing she'd said all year. I had always come around. Until now. When she ended the call, she jumped a little when she saw me standing there. "Jesus, Larry, don't sneak up on me like that." "Didn't mean to," I said calmly. "Just hearing about how I'll come around. Sounds like breaking news." She went pale, then quickly recovered. "It's called manifesting, Larry. You should try it. Might help you get over your obsession with control." I tilted my head. Funny. Coming from the woman who emailed my boss pretending to be me. Her face twisted, but before she could reply, I added, "Don't bother denying it. HR already knows." They thought it was creative. Unethical, but creative. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "You're unbelievable," she said finally, grabbing her phone. "I know," I said. "That's why I'm keeping records." For once, she had nothing to say. Just walked past me and slammed the door. I sat on the couch, calm as ever, thinking about the months of manipulation, the layers of lies, the effort she'd put into building her alternate reality. And I realized something simple but solid. This wasn't chaos. It was a system. The next day, I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, just listening to her call, until she noticed me in the reflection of her laptop screen. Her face drained of color, like I'd caught her with a hand in the company vault. "Oh, hey," she said too quickly, tugging her headset off. "Didn't hear you come in." "Clearly?" She fumbled with her mouse. "I was just wrapping up a client call." "With Ryan?" I asked casually. Her hands froze mid-motion. "What?" I walked in slowly. "The Portland designer you've been flirting with for 6 months. Don't look so surprised." Lisa filled me in. She blinked fast, switching to defense mode. "You're seriously invading my privacy now? Spying on me through your coworkers? God, Larry, that's disgusting." "No," I said evenly. "What's disgusting is lying to my face every day while pretending to play wife of the year." Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "You're paranoid." "I was networking." "You twist everything I do." "Networking?" I laughed quietly. "So, networking now includes canceling mortgages, emailing HR pretending to be me, and inventing family emergencies?" Interesting business model. She stepped back. You're insane. At least I'm not faking crises to manipulate someone into moving across the country. I said. Don't talk about my family, she snapped. You don't understand what they've been through. Oh, I understand perfectly. Your dad was unemployed for 4 weeks, and you turned it into your personal exit strategy. She went pale, eyes darting. You're twisting everything again. You always do this. Control, accuse, blame. I pulled my phone from my pocket and set it on the table. The screen lit up. Screenshots, timestamps, emails, chat logs. She'd left her Slack open on my laptop earlier, and her DM to Ryan was sitting right there when I got home. You want facts? Here. You canceled our mortgage from my email. You sent that HR message pretending to be me. You've been on Portland design calls since January, 4 months before your dad's layoff. She stared at the phone like it was a loaded weapon. You even saved Ryan's number under a fake project name? I added. You're sloppy for a designer. Her breathing quickened. You went through my phone? Nope, I said calmly. You went through my laptop first. I just got even. Her voice rose. You're so ungrateful. Everything I did was to save this marriage. I looked her dead in the eye. So flirting with Ryan was part of the marriage counseling? That stopped her cold. For a split second, guilt flashed across her face. Too quick for denial to follow. Then she laughed, a short, brittle sound. Wow. You really think I'd cheat on you? You're unbelievable. Yeah, I said. You keep saying that, and I keep finding proof. Her hands trembled. You don't know what you're talking about. Sure I do, I said, pulling up one more screenshot. Her private message to Ryan. Once I'm back in Portland, I'll finally be free from this. She stared at it, her mouth slightly open. You were never planning to move with me, I said quietly. You were planning to move from me. Her face twisted in frustration. You don't get it, Larry. You were holding me back. I needed to build something real. My family needed me. You just wanted to stay in your little comfort bubble, playing factory man while everyone else was moving forward. Forward? I asked. You mean lying your way into unemployment and calling it progress? She picked up her phone like she might throw it, then put it down again, realizing that wouldn't help her case. Finally, she said it. The line that told me everything about who she truly was. Fine. If you don't want to move out, then give me money for flights. I still have things to take care of. I actually laughed this time. You cheat, manipulate, and burn every bridge in sight, and your takeaway is asking for travel money? She shrugged, defiant. You owe me something after all this. I walked to the doorway, calm as ever. You're right. I owe you one thing. She looked up hopefully. What? Divorce papers. I met her eyes. We're done here. Her jaw tightened. You'll regret this. I already do, I said, regretting not ending it earlier. Then I turned and walked out, leaving her standing in that office full of lies she'd built, surrounded by the echoes of her own arrogance. Michaela had spent months building her perfect illusion, convinced she could outsmart me. But the thing about systems built on lies, they collapse under their own weight, and hers just did. The morning after I walked out, I called a lawyer. No hesitation, no second guessing. The man's name was Harris. Calm voice, direct questions, no fluff. I told him everything in order. The fake family crisis, the sabotage at work, the cheating. He listened without interrupting and said, You've got more than enough reason to file. I'll have the papers drafted by the end of the day. Perfect, I said. Send them straight to her. He paused. You sure you don't want to wait a few days? Sometimes clients... No, I cut in. This is overdue. That afternoon, I checked into a short-term apartment downtown. Bare minimum setup, bed, desk, and peace. The silence felt expensive in the best way. 3 days later, Harris called. She's been served. I smiled to myself. How'd she take it? He chuckled. From what the process server said? Not great. He wasn't kidding. Within an hour, my phone lit up with messages. You heartless coward. You're divorcing me? Over nothing? I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, she called. I let it ring out. Then she left a voicemail full of fake tears. You're really doing this? After everything we've been through? You're destroying a marriage because you can't handle being wrong? You're cold-blooded, Larry. Everyone's going to see who you really are. Translation. She'd already started damage control. By the next day, I was hearing from mutual friends. One texted, Hey man, Michaela says you blindsided her with divorce papers. That true? I replied with a single message. Ask her who's Ryan's silence. Word spread fast. She started telling people I abandoned her during a family emergency. On social media. I didn't bother defending myself. Let her run her PR campaign. I had work to do. The divorce process moved faster than I expected. Harris was efficient. He got every document squared away and made sure the joint accounts were frozen before she could move anything. A few days later, the bank notified me about repeated login attempts on one of the accounts, hers obviously, trying to initiate a transfer before the freeze fully processed. She emailed me that night. You're disgusting. I can't believe you trapped me financially like this. I replied once, you trapped yourself. The next morning, Greg called me into his office again. I figured it was about another fallout from the HR stunt, but instead he grinned. Promotion's official. HR cleared everything. The board's impressed with how you handled yourself through all that nonsense. I blinked. You're serious? Dead serious, he said. You stayed professional while your personal life was burning down. That's leadership. I laughed. Guess chaos management is part of engineering now. Apparently. By the end of the week, it was official. New title, raise, corner office. I didn't even celebrate. I just sat at my desk, exhaled, and realized how much lighter everything felt. Later that day, Jake and a few coworkers pulled me out to lunch. "Man, you've had the craziest month of anyone here," he said. "Promotion, divorce, surviving identity theft from your own wife." I smirked. "Yeah, it's been a ride." Jake raised a fry like a toast. "To Larry, proof that engineers can handle emotional warfare better than HR." Everyone laughed. It felt good. No pity, no awkwardness, just normal banter again. Meanwhile, Michaela was still busy online, pretending she'd made the bold decision to move to Portland for her career rebirth. Her new profile bio read, "Designer, dreamer, survivor." Lisa showed me her posts. Every picture was staged: coffee shops, plants, inspirational quotes. The captions read like she was auditioning for a self-help podcast. 2 weeks later, Harris sent over the draft settlement packet. "We're nearly there," he said. "Once the court signs the decree after the waiting period, it'll be official." I reviewed everything, signed the last page, and sent it back. It wasn't final yet, but it already felt like freedom. 3 years of marriage reduced to a folder of PDFs. And somehow that felt fair. I packed up my old apartment that weekend. Everything she left behind went into one box labeled hers. I didn't even look inside. I dropped it at a donation center, signed the release, and drove away. When I got home, I took out my phone and scrolled through our old photos. Vacations, birthdays, the forced smiles. Every picture had the same pattern. Me holding the camera, her posing like she was in a movie about herself. I deleted them all. At work the next week, Greg stopped by my new office. "So how's the single life?" "Quiet," I said. "In a good way." He grinned. "Keep it that way. You're damn good at your job. Don't let anyone hijack that again." I nodded. Lesson learned. The last time I ever heard her name was through Lisa. Apparently, Michaela was telling everyone in Portland she left a toxic marriage to pursue her dreams. The irony almost made me laugh. But the truth? I didn't care anymore. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the urge to prove anything. To her. To anyone. I'd done what most people don't. I walked away with my dignity intact. I came home from work one night, dropped my bag, and sat on the couch. No noise, no tension. Just the kind of silence that feels earned. The kind that means you made it through. And for the first time in years, I felt it. Peace. The real kind. The kind that comes when you stop folding to manipulation and start living for yourself. 2 months passed, and life felt good again. Work was steady, the air in my new place smelled like wood polish instead of tension, and the silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was peaceful. Then, one Monday morning, right after a meeting, my work phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I answered without thinking. "Larry, it's me." That voice froze me mid-sentence. Michaela. She sounded small, shaky, like she'd just finished crying. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. "Please don't hang up," she said quickly. "I just need to talk." I leaned back in my chair. "You've got 1 minute." Her breath hitched. "I made a huge mistake," she said, voice trembling. "Moving here. It's not what I thought. Everything's gone wrong." I kept my tone flat. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to listen." "Then say something worth listening to." She sniffled. "I miss you, Larry. I miss us. I know I hurt you, but I've had a lot of time to think. You were right about everything. My family didn't need me like I thought. My dad got another job 4 weeks after I moved. They're fine now. They didn't even want me staying that long." I tilted my head, staring out the window at the skyline. 4 weeks, huh? All that manipulation for a month-long crisis. Her voice cracked. "Don't say it like that." "Like what? Accurate? Please," she said, desperation creeping in. "Portland isn't what I expected. I can't get steady clients, the bills are piling up, and I can't do this alone." There it was, the truth wrapped in self-pity. "Not I miss you, but I can't handle life without control." "Larry," she said softly. "I understand now. I get what you were trying to tell me. You were the only stable thing I had. You kept me grounded." I smiled to myself. "No, I kept you accountable. You didn't like that difference." "Please," she whispered. "I've changed." I let the silence stretch until it got uncomfortable. "Michaela, you don't miss me. You miss control. You miss the version of me who let you run the show." "That's not fair," she snapped, her crying suddenly replaced by anger. "You think you're perfect? You think you didn't make mistakes too?" "I did," I said, "but mine weren't calculated." She went quiet for a long moment. "I just want another chance," she said finally, voice trembling again. "I'll move back. I'll prove I can be better." I checked the clock. "Your minute's up. Larry, please." Click. I hung up, blocked the number, sat there for a moment letting the quiet settle. There wasn't anger in me anymore, just certainty. 3 days later, she called again from another number. I ignored it. Then came an email. Subject line: "We need to talk." Deleted. The next day, I came home from work and saw her car parked in my driveway. My stomach didn't drop this time. It just steadied. I parked behind her, walked past her without a word, and unlocked my front door. "Larry!" she shouted, jumping out of the car. "You can't just walk away like this!" I turned slightly. "Watch me." She followed me halfway to the porch, crying. "You can't just throw away 3 years!" I looked at her once, calm and expressionless. "You already did." Then I stepped inside and shut the door. She banged on it a few times, shouting things between sobs. I didn't respond. For 20 minutes, she stayed outside, alternating between begging and cursing. Then her voice faded. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of her car door slam and the engine start. When I finally opened the door, there was a letter taped to it. My name written in big, shaky handwriting. I stared at it for a second, then pulled it off and dropped it straight into the trash can without reading a word. I didn't need to know what it said. It would have been more of the same. Just another performance. Another attempt to rewrite the story with herself as the victim. Later that night, Lisa texted me. Saw Michaela's new post. Something about learning from loss and rebuilding strength. I replied, yeah, she's learning all right. Then I put my phone on silent and went back to what I was doing. Assembling a new desk for my home office. Every screw, every piece methodically in place. No chaos, no manipulation, just order. That night, I sat at my finished desk and realized something important. Closure doesn't come from someone saying, I'm sorry. It comes from not needing to hear it. She wanted a reaction. I gave her silence. She wanted guilt. I gave her distance. And for the first time, that silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. A few weeks passed after Michaela's little doorstep stunt, and life went back to normal. My kind of normal. No drama, no guilt trips, no one timing their tears for effect. Just work, gym, and a clean house that actually stayed clean. Then one morning, I was running through project notes when Lisa texted me out of nowhere. Hey, thought you'd want to know. Your ex-wife's been making waves again. I replied, that sounds like her full-time job. Yeah, except now the waves are crashing. She got fired from Henderson Design. Something about integrity issues. Words going around that she got bounced for lying to a client, and a few local shops are already avoiding her. I sat back in my chair, almost laughing. The same company she bragged about joining? The one she left me for? Gone. Oh, and she's posting new chapter quotes again. Everyone knows she's lying about freelancing. I typed one line back. Some lessons come with invoice terms. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I checked her page, not because I missed her, but because I wanted to confirm what I already knew. Her latest post was a selfie in a coffee shop with the caption, New beginnings take courage. Translation, I got caught lying again. She was still pretending she'd chosen this life, still playing the victim. The comments were dry. No one buying it anymore. I closed the app and deleted the link. She wasn't my problem anymore, and her failure wasn't my victory. It was just proof that karma runs on its own schedule. A week later, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize at first. Michaela.kdesigns at. The subject line read, I'm finally ready to talk. I didn't open it right away. I made dinner, cleaned up, took a shower, and sat down at my desk. Then I clicked it open. Larry, I know I've said things I shouldn't have. I've had time to reflect on everything. Portland wasn't what I hoped for. I thought I was chasing independence, but maybe I was just running from myself. I hope we can talk as friends. You were always the most stable person in my life. Michaela, no apology, no ownership. Just recycled words wrapped in fake humility. I hovered over the reply button for 2 seconds, then hit delete. Not even worth a no. 2 days later, Lisa sent another message. She's telling people you might reconcile. I replied, she can reconcile with her landlord first. At work, things couldn't have been smoother. Projects were on schedule, the team was solid, and Greg was trusting me with bigger deals. Jake would still joke about the great divorce of Denver, but this time it was all in good humor. Man, he said one afternoon, remember when she emailed HR pretending to be you? That was next level insanity. Yeah, I said, signing off on a project report. And now she's pretending to be a motivational speaker. Full circle. We both laughed. But the truth was, I didn't think about her much anymore. She turned into background noise, a reminder of who I used to tolerate. That weekend, I finally did something I'd been meaning to do since the divorce finalized. I adopted a dog. A 3-year-old shepherd mix from the shelter. The guy at the counter asked what name I wanted on the tag. I smiled. Call him Rusty. Rusty turned out to be everything my marriage wasn't. Loyal, quiet, and easy to feed. He'd sit next to me while I worked, head on my knee like he knew the peace in the room was hard-earned. Lisa stopped by once to drop off a client file. You really rebuilt your whole life, she said, looking around. Yeah, I said. Didn't need a moving truck or an ultimatum this time. She laughed. Good. You look better this way. I feel better this way. Rusty barked once, like he agreed. She'd spent years trying to rewrite my life around her insecurity. Now she couldn't even get a reply. That was the real win. No revenge, no dramatic confrontation, just complete disinterest. When someone like her loses control over you, that's when they finally meet silence. And silence, for people like her, is worse than any insult. Rusty curled up next to me, tail flicking against the step. I scratched his head and said, "We did all right, huh?" He wagged his tail once. Simple answer. Inside, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I didn't even check. I turned off the ringer, locked the screen, and left it on the counter. And that was the cleanest ending I could have asked for.